You're listening to the Recovered Life Show, the show that helps people in recovery live their best recovered lives. And here is your host, Damon Frank.
And welcome back to the Recovered Life Show. I am so pleased to be with Bilal today, who's joining us, recovery coach for Recovered Life. Welcome to the show, Anaz.
Thank you, Damon.
It's good to see you. You know what? I first met you on Clubhouse in one of our Clubhouse rooms, and you always have something very interesting to say. It's always very impactful. So I want to have you on the show to talk about really the power of self-reflection. We were talking offline about how important it is to have self-reflection in recovery, being able to, look back on yourself with some objectivity, to be able to say, what's happened in my life last year, what's going on this year. Everybody's talking about, the beginning of 2023. So I wanted to kind of bring this topic up with you, see what you have to say. I know you've had an amazing life in recovery, and you use the power of self-reflection, correct?
Right. Yeah. So I believe that self-reflection is very important, especially when we have these milestones come in, like the New Year's, and to reflect back on how far you've come. Because if you don't see, my feelings is that if you don't see the progress from how far you come, the journey becomes a little harder, because the hope is in the beginning, when you can reflect and say, okay, so maybe last year I was struggling in this certain area in my life. And now here we go in 2023. At the end of 2022, I see the progress that I've made, from the struggles that I've overcome, So I think that is real important. Self-reflection is very important. It's like a self-inventory. It's like a self-inventory, taking your inventory, working out the challenges. What are some of the things that were challenging for me? Was I working through all my character defects, as the year was going on? Was I able to ask for help when I needed it? Was I able to be of help to someone? And then and am I continuing to put the work into my process? That it needs to, so that I can continue moving forward in my life.
That's
so self-reflection is very important. And then it gives,
You know what?
And it just gives you an opportunity.
I remember when we were kids, they always said there was a saying that says, check yourself before you wreck yourself. Remember that? That was like the big thing. And I always think about that with self-reflection because, the ability to be able to kind of stop, look at where you're at in your life, where you're at in your recovery is so essential because it allows you to have growth. Like when you were out there and, before, the Anaz, before the recovery coach, back trapped in the addiction, did you use self-reflection at all or did you run from it?
Not at all. Not at all, because everything was suppressed. And, those are one of the things that survival skills that you have when you're definitely out there struggling in that lifestyle is suppressing, your feelings. So there was no self-reflection. Like you said, something that was very important, how you run from yourself. But everywhere you run, there you are. You running right back into yourself. So not at all.
Absolutely. Well, you know what? I'd love to hear what we've been talking a lot on the Recovered Life Show about, Christina, Dennis, and I have a show that we do every week where we talk about kind of what's going on in our breakdowns and breakthroughs. And we do one on Clubhouse. If anyone who's listening has ever joins us there, you've been to that one where we talk about the breakthroughs that we're having in recovery. And I think a lot of people say, hey, Anaz, like, of course, like you always have breakthroughs because you're a recovery coach, but you probably rarely have breakdowns, right? Like, I think people are very unrealistic about like their own recovery. And I know like, just because you're sober doesn't mean that you're not going to have breakdowns. And self-reflection is a great time when you have that breakdown to really take a look at what's going on and your role in it.
Right. Yeah. So, and when I think I was on the show maybe a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about breakdown and breakthrough, and the process is breakdowns and breakthroughs. That's the journey. That's the journey, the breakdowns and the breakthroughs, and then the breakdown is really like a setup to help you break through whatever you're going through. So I believe that the breakthroughs is important. The breakdowns make you stronger, and the breakthroughs make you even more stronger. So it's just beautiful, the whole process. Nothing is roses. So it's just about that journey, and it's a real positive journey, but the breakdowns, it's just building you up. It's just making you stronger, basically.
I mean, so many people, though, Anaz, I think, run from any kind of conflict, any kind of breakdown. But like when I look back at my life, I don't know about you, and we've talked a lot, via phone, offline, and through Clubhouse and stuff. And I've realized it's like those are the times where I actually grew, right? Like those are times where I actually had to, I think in sobriety had to use the power of self-reflection, right? Like that, I had to use it because I had to get through to be able to see, okay, where do I need to go if I'm feeling lost? Something in your own life, I know, I'd love you to discuss like how you used self-reflection in 2023 to analyze, 2022. Like, and what's that process like for you as a sober coach and when you're working with other people and using self-reflection?
Basically, when you look at the trauma that, because a lot of us come from a background where there was a lot of trauma, and I believe like in spite of all the trauma, there is definitely tools that we have been using to basically get through, like in the field that I am. And I do counseling in the field of trauma. So me actually experiencing my 17-year-old son who was murdered in 2006 was traumatic for me. But down the line, God had started using me to counsel other women that had lost their child to gun violence. So that was a self-reflection for me. And I was able to stay strong and move forward without going backwards, into addiction. So I was able to mentor other women and advocate, for women who children were victim of crimes. So that was
Yeah.
a big self-reflection moment in my life.
That's such a powerful example. I mean, obviously that's a lot of trauma there. And, I've heard you speak about that event and then what happened, you know, um, you know, what I'm wondering, what I always self-reflect on is, sometimes we look, it's like, man, life can be very tough, right? It can be very hard. It can be very, very difficult.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times when we get sober, we feel, well, you know what? The hard parts that's gone, right? And I think a lot of
Hmm.
people don't want to look at what's going on, self-reflection, in their life and
Yeah.
seeing what's going on. And they don't want to do an inventory on us because they feel like it's going to bring something up and they're not going to be able to handle it in recovery. But what I found is it's like the things that people run from in recovery, the amends they don't want to make, the not looking at the real things of what's really going on with them is what brings them back out into addiction and relapse.
Right. Yeah, that's absolutely true because I noticed that when we go into Clubhouse and we talk about sensitive topics, it kind of like scares a lot of people away and they don't want to really talk about those topics. But those specific topics can be the things that they may be suppressing and keep them in that state of mind in addiction because they don't want to talk about that. And we said that somebody has to talk about that. And that's how you get better. And it's like a wound. And I think we talked about it, like when you get hurt and you cut yourself and it's a wound and it's open and you have to heal it, So in order, they say nothing covered up gets healed. So if you continue to cover it up, you won't allow it to get the air it needs to breathe how it needs to breathe and to get better with new skin forming on it. So that's how we talk about that. But a lot of people don't like talking about hurtful, painful, traumatic events in their lives because they're used to suppressing it and they don't want to deal with it. But those that go in and go deep as to the core root of what make them use the traumatic things that happen in their lives. Once you go in and do the work that you need to do so that you can sort through the contradiction and the confusion and everything and do that personal inventory, you're able to heal from that, but a lot of people, it's really hard for people to do it, but there are people that's doing it, but it's really hard. It's a really sensitive topic.
I think what I've learned, and this is just perception of my own life, right? Because I think so many times when we're looking at recovery, we're looking at our own experience if we're recovered, right? And, the things in which I wasn't really willing to face at a year of sobriety, 2 years sobriety, 3 years, 10 years of sobriety, it kind of was like an unfolding, almost like layers of an onion, right? Like there were times when I was able to deal with
Mm,
things better. I just didn't have, just to be really honest about it, I didn't have the emotional maturity at the time to really kind of face it. But I found that there is really no running from this stuff, right? Like there is no,
yeah.
you really can't run from it. Like you can't outrun it, right? Like, and and I'd love to hear your thoughts on that because I think so much of the early recovery and getting sober process for people is people running, flight, freeze, or fawn, as they say, into dealing with the traumas that they had and being
Mhm,
able to actually look at them in a objective way, right? To say like, hey, okay, yeah, I did
mhm.
this, or I was involved in this, or I'm hurt in this particular area.
Yeah. So, and one thing about running is wherever you go, there you are. They say you have to address your issues or your issues will address you. So no matter, you may try to go to another state and do different things, but it's still inside of you because you got to remember that there is things going on inside of you and around you, and in order to really recover, you have to uncover. And that's the thing. It's hard, for people to uncover, those traumatic events, So it's like there's no running. Where are you going to go? Everywhere you go, there you are. There's no
There you
running.
are.
So you have to, yeah, there you are, So it's just like you have to address the issues because the issues will soon address you in different forms
Yeah.
and they said just like addiction is in all different forms, you may not act out in the actual act of using, but you may act out in other areas of your life that's going to bring you to having no choice but to use the actual substance in the end, when you can't take it no more, from the behaviors. So that's basic what it is. And I think it takes courage to go in. When we hear so many different stories, our stories and people's stories that we hear, man, it takes a lot of courage to go on the inside. I mean, when people first come and get their self together, they just want the pain to stop. That's all they want. They don't have no idea about the steps, the traditions, and doing no work or sponsorship. All they just want is the pain to stop. And when they find out that they got to go on the inside and do work, then that's questionable.
Yeah,
It's just really
absolutely.
questionable when it gets to that part right there.
You know what? I think, there's always this debate in Oz. There's always this debate. It's like, what's the easier, softer way, right? And, there are times where it appears that drinking or using drugs is the easier, softer way because the process in which going in depth and to really be able to look at who you really are, you know, the bad,
Hmm.
but also the good, like I always said, like if you've got a great coach like you, or you have a great sponsor in a 12-step program, they're not only they're not only giving you some sort of feedback about who some of the things that aren't really optimal about you, they're also giving some
Hmm.
things that are pretty amazing about you too. And I think if you
Yes,
don't have the
absolutely.
ability, right? If you don't have the ability to look at the stuff that's not so great, you don't really have the ability to reinvent yourself in your sober life with the stuff that's great.
Right, that's right. And you know what? I was just reflecting back on when my first sponsor had did a fourth step with me, and then she was saying about write down your assets, right? And when I wrote down a little bit of assets, and she wrote down a whole list of things, and these the things that she see in me that I didn't see in myself. So in this process, you don't only find out the things that you don't like about yourself that you want to change. You find out the good things. You're a good person. You're a good listener. You have a love for people. You're caring. You know, all these different good qualities that had got stuffed down because of using. You know what I'm saying? So you're not all, and just said when we come here, we don't find out that we were all that good or all that bad. So we all have good in us.
Absolutely. You know what, Anaz, when we come back, I know you've gone through a lot of things in recovery, right? You talked about the death of your son. Other things have happened for you, good and bad in recovery. I really, when we come back from this quick break, I want to dive into the process that you use and how you help other people get to that place where they can start doing self-reflection in themselves day by day, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
I do think it's learned. I really do. Like we were just talking about the good things, right? Most people are never going
Yeah.
to really even think about that. I know when somebody said,
Mm-hmm.
hey, like there's a lot of opportunity because I got sober in my 20s. Is like there's a lot of opportunity here for you to be able to do good in the world, right? And I didn't see that, because I was just in a place where I felt broken and I knew I had to get out of that place. And I want to talk, when we come back from this quick break, in Oz, because you're the person to do it, lead us through how that process
Mm-hmm.
for you in self-reflection. So more about that. We're going to hear Anaz, how she does it after this quick break. We'll be right back. Are you tired of feeling alone in your struggles with dysfunction in your family? Are you ready to find practical solutions, healing, and community? Then join Meredith Wycliffe Wednesdays at 5 p.m. for Healing Within Dysfunctional Families. This 1-hour peer support meeting is a safe and supportive space for deep conversation about the impact of dysfunction on our lives and how to find practical solutions and healing. Meredith understands firsthand the challenges and pain of growing up in a dysfunctional family, and she's here to help you find hope and healing. Together, we can overcome the challenges of our past and create a brighter future. To RSVP for Healing Within Dysfunctional Families, just visit recoveredlife.us and click on Find Your Group. Don't miss this opportunity for support, healing, and community. We'll see you this Wednesday at 5 p.m.
You're listening to the Recovered Life Show.
I am back with Naz Bilal. We are talking about the power of self-reflection in recovery, how to use the new year as an opportunity to reflect on your progress and identity in areas of improvement. Naz, okay, I promised everybody that when we came back, you were going to go over your process of what you use and what you use for other people. When they're, somebody might be listening to this and they're like, man, you know what? I don't really want to look at myself because I'm afraid of what I'm going to find. I know you would say, Naz, I know you will enough. You'd say, do it. You're going to, it's going to be worth it. But how do you do it? How do you start to look at yourself?
First off, you have to be, and I know you heard this, and this is going all the way back to the beginning, like 20, 21 years back. First of all, you have to want the change. You have to have the desire, right? And you can have the desire, just having like this, the mustard seed of the desire to change, to do something different, something totally different than what you've been doing, to make the change. And that's why they say, like, each one teach one. So you surround yourself around people that's actually working the program and that's actually utilizing their process to help build their lives back together. And one thing you said earlier about the broken pieces, what you have the opportunity to do is put the broken pieces back together of your life and see how that unfolds, and you just have to have the belief system, So what I had was, I had a mentor, I had a sponsor, and she had a lot of information, she had a lot of information about changing her life around and what she did. So I followed her footsteps, and she made meetings, so I made meetings. She had other sponsees, so I connected with them, and then what happened is I wound up having sponsees too, and then when I went to different meetings talking about what's going on with me, I was killing from the inside out, meaning I had to go there and share the ugly side of addiction, of what I didn't want, to share, but I needed that to grow. And I didn't know that that was the key. I did not know that was the key, because I thought it was about leaving the mask on. But one thing we always say, the mask must go. Whatever you're going through, you need to talk about it, talk about to people that care about you, and people just like you, people that been through what you've been through. So that's what we call support groups, and that's what we do. And that's basically what I would suggest, is that you really start going to support groups, like these support groups on Recovered Life, Clubhouse support groups, NA, CA, whatever you need to do, and just get in there and just listen. And even if you're afraid to talk, just listen and keep coming until you have the courage. Because it's so funny how, because we do the Clubhouse every week, and then now what's happening, people that came in a while ago that used to just stay down in the bottom and listen, now they're coming up to the audience, and they're up to the stage, and they're talking and they're expressing themselves, and they needed people like us to come on and talk about the gory stuff, so that they could have the courage to say, well, listen, I felt like that too. You know what I'm saying? Like, I did that too. And I thought I was this and that. And I found out that I'm not that bad. I found out, like, there's a reason that I'm here. There's a reason that I'm here, and now they love it. And that's all they talk about, is changing up their lives, putting their broken pieces back together. And what an amazing process that it is. What an amazing process that it is. And that's the only thing we can do, is just share. It's just about, telling our life story, telling our story. How did we get from point A to point B in this process, and how do we continue to move forward? And we were so happy about the new year coming in, because look how we brought it in, right? And years ago, we wouldn't bring it in like that. We probably came rolling in. But we came in strong, we came in real strong. And then it's an opportunity to say, like, wow, I can do it. I can do it. If she can do it and she shared her story, then I know I can do it too. So that's basically the blueprint. The blueprint is just keep coming, don't give up. That's the blueprint. Just keep coming and don't give up until you get the courage to talk about what's going on with you. Just make sure you stay around people, and don't go around people that's using. Stay around people in the process of sobriety or recovery, and just follow those footsteps right there. Get you a sponsor, get you a mentor. You don't have to do this alone. And that's one of the things they always talk about when they come up on Friday nights. I've been doing it alone. I haven't had anybody to walk this journey with me, because I felt like no one wanted to walk this journey with me. But this is not even a journey that you walk through by yourself. That's why they say this is a we thing. This is not an I. We can do something I cannot do alone. You always have help along that journey.
Absolutely. You know what? I think the amazing thing about addiction recovery in Oz, and you mentioned NA, AA, Clubhouse, Recovered Life, and there's a myriad of other things, coaches, therapists, sponsors.
Yes.
There's so many different avenues, right? But it always brings us to this place of self-awareness, of being able to look at ourselves objectively and to see the strengths and the weaknesses. One of the interesting things that I find about addiction is that many times people enter into recovery and it's because of alcohol or drugs have brought them down, or codependency, or, eating, or any kind of a gambling, any kind of addiction has brought them down. But the self-awareness ends up becoming later about other things, right? They know something's there, and yes, they deal with the addiction. They start to heal from that, but then then other things pop up that they realize that really had nothing to do necessarily with the drugs and alcohol, or the gambling, or whatever addiction it is. It had to do with trauma, like you were saying, or other things. And that self-realization, being able to look at yourself, grows, right? I mean, where has that grown in your life? I know, because you've had a long journey, a lot has happened to you. Where do you feel that whole self-realization? What have you learned about yourself in Oz that you didn't know when you came into this process?
First of all, that I would stay. I would stay. I didn't even see me staying. That wasn't even a thought, I had no idea what the process was even like or what it was about. Like I shared earlier when we were talking, that when we first come here, we just want the pain to stop. That's the goal. What changed for me was when I began to do the work. When I began to do the necessary work to change, that's when the light bulb just came on. Like, I want to continue feeling this way, because there's a rewarding feeling that you feel when you actually do the work that's required for you to make those changes, in your life. So it was when I said, okay, I want to roll my sleeves up, and I want to actually put the footwork in, get with the step work, get to know who I am, have the courage, be around real nurturing women, mentors, sponsors like that. So I think that's basically was the main goal, was when you become willing to do the work. And that was early on. And the pivoting moment for me is when, like I shared earlier, my son was killed on February 17th. And February 20th, I celebrated 5 years clean. Wow. In 2006, right? And this was 3 days after. Right. And that's freshly new. Like, when you first in there, your first couple of years, you're just like so freshly new. So by that time, that was the moment that I said, you know what? I'm in it. I'm in this. I'm not leaving. I'm staying here and I'm going to push through. And that's exactly what happened. Even, having the support from other people that was in a fellowship, they walked me through that journey, and that could have been a time where I could have just threw the towel in. There's a lot of people that throw the towel in when they have to bury their loved ones and they just can't take that type of pain, so that was the moment for me when I knew that I really wanted to be here. And I finally found a place where I feel like I will be for a long time.
Yeah, that breakthrough to know it's like, you know what, I can do this. I can stay sober. I can do it long term. And I'm an active participant in it, right? Like, I'm an active participant in it. Things aren't just happening to me. I can make a choice that I want to stay sober long term. Naz, Bilal, thank you so much for coming on the Recovered Life Show today. Super inspirational. I can't wait to have you back. Guys, if you want to know more about Naz, if you want to work with Naz, if you want to talk with her, we've got an amazing Recovered Life page. We're going to put links here so that you can contact her, find out more about her and the work that she does. Naz, final thoughts here. If anybody's sitting listening to this and
listen, look, this is the final thought. I opened up a mental health agency, right, called Seeds of New Beginnings, right? And we do substance use help and mental health help for people. So that was that's like beyond my wildest dream. I never thought that I would reach that type of goal, but that's the blessing. So it's like lost dreams awaken and new possibility arises in this process. Like, I'm telling you, it's definitely a journey that has been definitely worth it. So those are my thoughts. This is a journey that you are definitely going to love, and you'll have help along the way. You don't have to do this alone.
Oh, Naz, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Keep the conversation going. Join Recovered Life, a community of like-minded people who are looking to live their best recovered lives. Membership is free, and you can apply at recoveredlife.us.